Welcome to part 2 of an assessment of contemporary society. We will look at the advancements of humanity, and in spite of the advancements, we are beginning to see some slippage. Despite the inhumanity, despite the moral depravity of relativity, despite the hardened hearts against God, the Spirit of God has accompanied humankind since the beginning to where we now are. The absolute truths of God's unconditional love has been carried in the hearts and minds of faithful souls. In parallel to the hatred of the relativist curse on humanity, goodness has survived and prospered. Genuine goodness has weathered the tempest of evil afflicting civilizations and humanity over the millennia, and the goodness is expressed into many splendid achievements across all walks of life. Pure hearts have inspired, motivated, challenged, and enabled many marvelous developments in civilization. Our freedoms of mind, conscience, behaviors have emerged and grown from century to century, now precise and encoded within written constitutions as guaranteed for generations to follow. In addition to advancements in law, science and innovation have sparked new avenues of inquiry, experimentation, and discovery. At the turn of the century here in America, Tesla's brilliance develops the induction motor, soon to set the standard for electricity in America, using alternating current as opposed to the direct current invention by Thomas Edison. The light bulb, developed by Edison, debuts and revolutionizes how America and the world lights up at night. No longer gas lamps and candles. The world has a safer and more effective alternative. Across the world, in India, Gandhi, living a life of poverty, yet with richness of soul, teaches the world on how to express patience, meekness, and love, instructing the world how to protest with nonviolence and how to achieve peaceful change in society. Back in America, women stand up to be heard. The women's suffrage movement in the early part of the 20th century emerges, capturing another milestone in the development of humankind as women pursue equal rights and freedoms to vote, changing an ageless perception of women as mere property to be seen and not heard. Now we hear them and welcome their voices. Einstein and other mathematical and physics geniuses peer into the darkness of matter and find a deeper light of understanding, starting a path of human inquiry into our physical world and reality, which continues to this very day. The discovery of penicillin in the 1920s by Alexander Fleming directly leads to saving millions of lives over the following decades, right up to the present, a distant achievement which stays close to humanity in all corners of the earth. Jonas Salk discovering a polio vaccine in the mid-20th century, conquering one of the great scourges of our world, and thereby relieving untold suffering and death from the lives and families of millions. In fact, the spigot of medical, genetic, and pharmaceutical research has been opened up, leading to incredible life-saving and life-perpetuating advancements throughout the world, from laboratory to life, extending humanity and eradicating human illness and giving hope to the sick and infirm. Incredible growth in genetics and the physiology of life on the nanoscale, and leading to cloning of animals, including humans. The cloning of parts for replacement of aged hearts, lungs, and kidneys further push the elastic boundaries of ignorance and deepening our understanding of God's creation. Perhaps the most significant advancements have been experienced in medicine, medical care, medical technology, and medical education, all to the direct benefit of life, reflecting a natural inner drive to ensure, protect, and prolong human life. As the spirit of humanity is generous and caring, the soul is likewise loving and caring. Humanity is boundless in spending tens of millions of dollars on caring for God's creatures, respecting life beyond just people, helping to advance it to a greater fullness than otherwise would have been possible. We have witnessed the relentless pursuit for permanent peace and human dignity throughout the world, starting with the League of Nations and then developing into the United Nations and other world bodies to aid the development of countries and people across the planets. We have experienced the crusades of truth and the expressions for dignity and true freedom, unleashing the most innermost self of the individual upon the oppressive weight of prejudice and ignorance. Martin Luther King Jr. reaches out in the 1960s with his dream for a better world. Not only have we seen great achievements in political and legal realms, we have seen comparable grand advancements in architecture and construction, modernizing our city landscapes with skyscrapers, beautiful houses of worships, bridges, art centers, parks, road networks, shipping ports, and canals. Human achievement has reached beyond the land as we've left our planet and advanced science exploration to the moon and beyond. Over the past century, we've developed many modern modes of transportation. Using our knowledge of physics, the Segway has emerged in many places of work and cities all over the world. We've developed transportation above and below the sea, for the land, in the air, under the water. And the ingenuity and creativity development continues unabated into the 21st century, aiding industry, economic growth, personal travel, military defense. At CERN in Europe, some of the brightest scientific minds of humanity have assembled and applied the limits of the Hadron Collider, aiming to reach greater depths of understanding about the physics of particle research. Advancement have burgeoned in communications, where once undersea cables of hard telephone lines under the Atlantic represented modern communications. We now have satellites in orbit, allowing instantaneous communications anywhere on the planet, along with cell phones, tablets, computers to interact with one another. The advent and growth of nanotechnology, which has advanced into virtually all areas of business, medicine, agriculture, transportation, avionics, paint and chemical, computing, and the list goes on, revolutionizing production and the frontiers of what's possible. And now the intellectuals debate the advent of advanced robotics to think, work, instruct, and care alongside us. What was once science fiction is now reality. Robots liberating humankind from dangerous, dirty work, assisting in highly skilled surgery, chemical handling, biogenetics. And what about advancements in artificial intelligence? Our world is changing rapidly, and AI is going to play an integral role in expediting the development of knowledge in all fields of humanity, be it science, social, arts, athletics, engineering, medical, and the list goes on. Again, what was science fiction just 20 years ago is now reality. We are witnessing an unprecedented growth in technology over the past 65 years, and as we learn more, we're able to discover more, and the reach of humankind into the depths of the universe seems to be limitless. As research and discovery has grown, so has the world of academia, learning, and education at all levels, propelling humanity into the future with greater knowledge and insight to make the world better. As the population has increased from 1 billion to 2 to 3, now to 7 billion, we have seen advancements in food science and water purification, enabling a consistent supply of edible foods and clean water. We have realized our planet is a living organism, and many people have developed a worldwide social conscience of protecting the planet and our environment from wanton destruction and adverse exploitation. Our appreciation for life continues to mature beyond ourselves, and we identify with and protect endangered species the world over. Humankind's heart is flexed from a selfish inward focus of conquest and survival to an outward focus of care, love, and helping the least able among us. An exploding growth of humanitarian and relief agencies now exist and operate with relentless dedication to bring sustenance to the starving, clothing to the naked, shelter to the homeless, and life-saving medical care to the sick. And in the last century, we've reached out to the abused, sick, starving, lost in our animal world, showing human compassion for God's creatures big and small, demonstrating the value of life extends not just to human beings, but to the caring and loving of all life among us. We've peeled back the cover on brain research and mental illness. No longer are human beings mindlessly dumped into dark, filthy sanitariums. Now we grapple with illness of the mind with research, medicine, and long-term care. A few centuries ago, and for the millennium before then, the mentally ill were cast out to suffer and die. The Olympics, where the world sends its best to compete in many sports, reflecting a spirit of cooperation, peace, and positive engagement. Rather than fighting on battlefields, we now compete on athletic grounds and usher forward the noble morals of humankind. We have advanced across all spectrums of society, culture, and human endeavor over the centuries. Although we have not yet vanquished the darkness which surrounds us, we've made a relentless effort to develop humanity to be aligned with the spirit of light within our souls, to become closer with the goodness and truth. However, despite all the achievements accomplished to improve our world and the quality of our lives, despite the earnestness in which we have engaged in the drive onward, there is a continuous effort to derail humanity and drag us back into the darkness. It is clear that upon close examination of our history, and wherein man claims sovereignty rather than God, the tenets of moral relativity has emerged, denying the dignity of humanity, raping of our reasoning, addicting of our bodies, and subjugating of our souls. That same spiritual perversion of worlds unseen, which infected our collective history with the harshest of cruelty, is still with us, seeking to reverse our gains, corrupting our achievements and drawing humanity down and against itself, all striking signatures of a world still entangled with relative morality, a world in denial of a loving God. In balance, thankfully we can look back upon our histories and witness the counterforce of absolute morality uplifting humankind. We can see how the belief in a single sovereign God who unconditionally loves humankind has stayed with us and shaped humanity with moral inspirations, prophets, and hope. And if we look carefully, we can see the patient hand of God deep in our long history, keeping humanity's heart and mind warm with love, enabling creative genius, enlightenment, and a perseverance in developing an inner spiritual awakening, an awakening with a purpose to lead humankind into a higher consciousness of the world and our purpose within it. However, we should be sobered by the reality around us to this very day. Humanity is still in a contention between good and evil, still under the duresses of a relentless enemy. Despite our progress, a caution is warranted. Know that what's up can be torn down, especially if we are not devout to truths and vigilant about incursions of moral relativity into our culture, into our communities, our institutions, and families. After a near century of good progress, there is cause to pause. Unfortunately, we see things are starting to slip. The resurgence of moral relativity's destructive elements are once again actively entangling our culture, once again eagerly focusing on reversing humanity's long, fervent struggle to develop and grow, once again seducing humanity to basic instincts of greed, fear, sexual pursuits, once again rallying against God and the faithful. It is fair to ask us, why do we say this? Why do we see things slipping back for all humanity, endangering what has been positively accomplished? We would like to share with you now why, and one excellent way to see the slippage for yourself is to examine the current state of contemporary society. Examine it in terms of the values which are or are not being followed, the trends, the facts, the collective impressions of where things are going. Specifically, examining what and how our culture at large is, or is not, doing to the underlying complexion of human values. It is here, at the value level, you get the most complete indication as to what is afoot in society. We'd like to share with you our perspective on what we see, specifically on why we see things slipping. We feel strongly about what is happening. We see a concerning picture unfolding. Very clearly, we see active forces of contention leaning deliberately against our families, leaning deliberately against our primary institutions, leaning against our faith and moral reasoning. and we see this happening in America as well as across the rest of the world. We see these negative forces having significant intent to erode, confuse, and corrupt the good foundational values in our lives. We see these dark forces making constant effort to suffocate the essence of God in our world. As you will see in our next set of presentations, these contentious forces act in a steady, subtle manner to avoid detection, while maximizing their influence on people and institutions. In the end, you of course will reach your own opinion of what's happening, based on what you hear, see, and conclude after the presentations we make on contemporary society. We do believe you'll find things eye-opening and concerning. Let's take a contemporary look at how our primary institutions are influencing value development in families and lives today. We'll be looking at religion, literary, legal, and civic, business and industry, social and leadership, academia and learning, and arts, music, and communications. Our next presentation in our assessment of contemporary society will focus on the primary institution of religion. Please go to presentation 6A.